Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's Podcast. This is episode 178. It's November the 6th, 2025. And our guest today is a longtime educator and a coach and an avid golfer, and he's a promoter of the game of links. So thank you for coming, Butch Freeman.
Thank you for having me.
Well, golf is called game of links. What's links?
Well, that's the area between the ocean and the mainland. They have a low area there that they decided that was out of the way, I guess, and it was a fertile enough land that they decided to put golf holes in there, and it was the old Scottish game, and the name stuck, I guess, and so everybody calls it links. But
where'd you get the name Butch? What is your real name?
My real name is Robert. I had both my father's Robert Sr., and I had two grandfathers who both, their first names were Robert, and my Uncle Robert decided when I was a baby, I guess, and he gave me the nickname Butch. Because my dad was called Bobby, and my one grandfather's named Rob, or called Rob. Another one went by his middle name. And now I've got a cousin or two, probably, that's got the same name as well. So it's a popular family name.
The first time, you won't remember this, but the first time I ever met you, I was a kid, lived on Clough Street, and you used to come over. You had relatives, Sandy and Mike Marion,
right,
lived down the road from me. And I wasn't maybe 8 years old, 9, something like that. And Mike had a basketball goal in his backyard there by the garage. He didn't play a lot of sports or anything. Mike wasn't much into sports. He later became a small engine guy that could he could tear them down and put them together. But we were over there playing ball, and you were over there visiting. Were they cousins or something?
They're cousins. Their mother and my mother were sisters.
Okay. Great family. And the old man was a fireman, and then he ended up owning rural equipment for a while. But that's how I met you. We played some ball and stuff. So I started kind of following you a little bit. And every once in a while I see your name in a paper, even at a young age. And one of them was like when Beaver Elementary was going to Williamsburg or something in the 8th grade.
Yeah, we had an 8th grade class trip that went to Williamsburg and had a bus load.
And that was pretty rare back in those days. I mean, now they do a lot of it, but I went to Sylvia, and I could never imagine taking a bus trip anywhere, But that was in the paper. They had the kids that were going, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I had to raise something like $50 to take the trip, and at the time I would usually collect pop bottles if we had a party in the class. Kids didn't want to take their pop bottle with them. I'd collect the pop bottles. I'd pick them up along the road or whatever, and resell them 3 cents a piece.
Yeah.
And so I raised $25, and my grandmother gave me the other $25 so I could go on the trip.
You ever been back down in that area?
Yeah, I actually on a honeymoon I went.
Oh, really?
Williamsburg.
Another thing I saw one time in the paper, that you were a pallbearer at a very young age for a Robert Ellison.
Yeah, Ellison.
Tell me about that. That was an unusual accident. That he was young.
His family, I don't think, had a whole lot, and he would go into this old mines there and get coal for them to burn. He'd heat the house, and he was in there this one time, and it caved in on him and killed him, and so he was in our elementary class, and so they needed pallbearers, and I volunteered for that.
Now you lived at Beaver, West Virginia.
Yes.
And did you live close to Harold Lilly? Harold lived in Beaver, but I don't know.
Yeah, there was Lilies that lived there in Beaver, and I didn't know everybody there, but I remember the name Harold Lilly. But I'm trying to recall who it was, but
Well, Harold, do you know Harold now?
no.
Okay, Harold played basketball at Shady, but he would have been about class of 1970 or something like that.
Okay.
He was quite a bit younger than you were. But then so when you played at Shady Junior High, you played with guys like Alex Skeldon and Danny Calvert, and Merle Kaiser was on your team, wasn't he? I don't think Merle was much of a basketball player.
No, Merle was a football player mainly, and he attended Shady his 9th and 10th grade, and then he moved and went to Woodrow his 11th and 12th grade. But we had still got together some in recent years, and he lived at Little River, north of Myrtle Beach, and we had eight of us that got together and played golf until, I guess, 2 to 3 years ago when that bad hurricane blew through North Carolina and South Carolina.
Is Merle still around?
Merle moved recently, well, earlier this year from Little River to Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. He actually moved into East Beckley area where I lived, and Joe, his brother, was younger, and Joe was quite an athlete himself. I can remember Merle. Even though he was in high school, I think he ended up dating and maybe marrying Linda Darlington for a while. And then he worked at the bank, and he moved to the Martinsburg area, I think, for a while. And
he was the president of the bank up there, Premier Bank, I think it was called, and before he left there and came back in this area.
And Joe, he ended up playing football and basketball, little
good
everything.
Quarterback.
Yeah, he was
for Woodrow.
Yeah, he was an outstanding athlete there. In 1964, you played high school basketball. Did you play anything else in high school?
I played football as well.
Played football.
64 also. I was the first day we scrimmaged, I was playing defensive end, and I had a tackle fall on my lower leg, and somebody hit me from the side, and my ankle popped. Thought it was broken. I could hear it all over the field, and I tore all the rib ligaments and had to wear a cast for about 6 weeks. And I missed the first 3 games. That was my senior year. And then when I got back, I couldn't move that laterally that good, so I ended up becoming the center, and Alan Skelton was the quarterback, and Alan always said he enjoyed me being the center because he didn't have to squat or bend over for me ball to him.
How tall were you in high school?
Actually, when I got my driver's license at 16, which was when I was a senior that fall, I was 6'2", and I grew a couple more inches after that year.
But back in those days, 6'2" was forward or a center or something. Yeah.
I was a tall one.
But I can remember, I think this was your junior year, and Willie Joe Chandler was the coach, and the sectional tournament was coming up, and the newspaper had done an earlier article that Shady Springs was the favorite in the sectional tournament, and Willie Joe had come out with a comment. He said, "Trap Hill and Stratton beat us. How are we the favorites?" And that's back when the Raleigh County League was
Right.
a big league.
Yes, we had several teams in it.
Yeah, that was
Stratton was awesome. They beat us, like you say, both times, and they had James Pemberton, who's like 6'7", and they called him Isaiah Bailey at the time, but after he went on, he was referred to as Kerry Bailey, and he was 6'5", but he could jump over the rim. I mean, he was outstanding. Harry Mayo and Tommy Moore and a couple more, I forget the names, but they were outstanding basketball team, and they would block so many shots. They beat us by 9 points in the last minute at Stratton because they blocked every shot we took. But in the sectional tournament, the championship, we played them, And I remember Tom McLaughlin that Doug mentioned in his podcast. He had great head and body fake, ball fake, and he would fake them, and they'd go up to block it, and he'd go up and lay it in after they was coming back down. And he got 25 points in that game when we won the sectional that year, and which Trap Hill had already been beaten. But we went on to the regional, and I think it was played at Princeton or Bluefield, and we played Oceana, and it came down to the last few seconds, and Wayne Anderson, he was guarding, and Bill Fritz might have been guarding the shooter, and he went up, and as the shooter was taking the last shot, he tipped the ball, and they called a foul on him. And the player made both foul shots and beat us there in the regional to get to go to the state tournament. Of course, what was it? Only 4 teams went to the state tournament at that time.
Well, was that when Greg Daniel played for Oceana back then, didn't he?
Yes, he was.
He was probably class 65.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. You mentioned Bailey from Stratton. He went to college out in California or something,
Beach.
played a couple years, and then they brought him back to WVU.
Yeah.
And his jumping, they said he could pick a silver dollar off the top of the backboard.
Yes, that's what they always said about him.
Yeah, and he was, but they thought he was going to be the answer when he came back. They had a big article, "Won't you come home, Kerry Bailey," or something, and he had a good career, but he couldn't carry the VU team like they were thinking he could.
Not a potential scorer, but he was a leaper.
Yeah, and Harry Mayo, I can remember him from a lot of games back in those days. He was a pretty good sized guy himself. Yeah. But now, and then you played. People don't. It's hard for younger people to realize now, but Richwood was a dominating team back in that. Tom Milroy and those guys, man, Barrett, and I mean they were a AAA school, I think, but they were just a team that had to be every year. They were Richwood, and you guys played them in the regular season, didn't you?
Yeah, and Mike Barrett was an outstanding player. He probably played about that time and went to West Virginia Tech and led them. They were an outstanding team in the colleges at the time. But I really don't recall much about Richwood playing.
I know one year when Beckley went to the state tournament, they had to beat Richwood to get there, and it was always tough. There was 2 Milroy boys, I think, one older and younger, and I think their dad was a dentist or something in Richwood, and they outstanding basketball players. And then Barrett ended up playing in the Olympics, and I mean he was something else. But there was some good ball teams, good ball players around. How did you get started playing golf?
Well, when I was about 12 or 13, my dad picked it up because he loved the sports. He played sandlot football. He was always quarterback, throwing the ball. He played basketball. Well, he played softball and baseball. And I remember him playing softball in the fast pitch league at Pinecrest when I was just a little kid. Fitzpatrick was a fastball pitcher. They played fast pitch at that time. But I remember that Dad playing. He was batted left-handed, so he liked to hit it over the right field fence. But he injured his knee and playing basketball, and he decided to try golf to be competitive. And he drove milk and ice cream truck, Greenbrier Dairy. He decided he would take up golf. He was left-handed, playing left-handed. And I went out with him to the old Twin Oaks course, which still had sand greens, and I went looking for balls most of the time, but I was supposed to be his caddy. And at the time, too, in behind John W.I., they had an archery range, and Phil Cook at Beaver took this old grocery store there, and he set up some targets inside there and let us boys in the neighborhood of Beaver there come and shoot arrows. And I was getting pretty good at that, and actually won some trophies, some medals shooting in the competition over there in that archery range. They'd have a target through the woods and then go through the woods
I remember
so many
that
targets.
place. It was up on the hill there
Yeah,
behind Beckley.
I really enjoyed that. So when I was 15, Dad said, well, for Christmas, do you want an archery set or do you want golf clubs? And I liked golf. I watched Arnold Palmer on TV and studied at some, read magazines, and I said, I want the golf clubs. So at that time, I got them at the age of 15 and really started playing then.
There wasn't many places to play, though, back then.
No, there wasn't. Twin Oaks and Black Knight was about it. But Dad and that crew, drivers he worked with and some from other companies, they would get together and go to like Willowwood or Princeton Elks and just different.
Was Cool Ridge?
9-hole course. Cool Ridge didn't exist at the time. It was a little bit later.
Grandview didn't either.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Now, didn't they have a par 3 over on 4H Lake Road?
Yeah, that's probably where I really got started playing, because the Wilson brothers started that at the driving range on one side, and across the street they had a little par 3, and I played there, and they had a tournament, and I think the first year, I won like a second flight, and then the next year I ended up runner-up to this tall left-handed guy that was played at Black Knight. So I got my second place trophy there. That's the first one I got for golf, and I played there quite a bit. There was a lot of Roger Keaton. I have a picture cut out of some of us. They took a picture of some of the players, and seemed like Slugger White played some there too. Of course, he was very good as well. And then I ended up playing with Roger Keaton a lot in the senior events.
Now, the Shady Spring High School didn't have a golf team at that time, did they?
No.
Yeah. And gosh, how times have changed. Now they're... And
it was a long time before they had a golf team.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I know Woodrow had a golf team back when I went to school, but I think they played at Black Knight was their home games. Right. But most of those guys were members anyway that played on the golf team. But you actually went to Beckley College and played at Beckley College. Joe Cook was your coach.
Played for Joe Cook.
Yeah. No, they did have Cool Ridge at that time.
Yes, they did. And we had matches there, and Coach Cook lived there at Tank Branch, and he had a motor scooter, and it had the platform there, and he would strap his bag on one side, and he would come up to Beaver, and he'd pick me up and strap my bag on the other side, and I'd get on the back of that motor scooter, and we'd ride out to Cool Ridge to play that little course out there. And I saw him just a few years ago before he passed, out to eat one night, and he said, I've been reading all these golf articles about you in the paper, and he said, how come you never give me any credit? I said, well, I'll do it the next time.
You mentioned your dad playing softball at Pinecrest. I used to go over there and hang around. We'd chase foul balls and stuff for the guys if we hit them over in the cows field or something. Right. And I think they called it Ballard Stadium back then. I don't know who Ballard was, but then it was hard to find fast pitch pitchers in softball. After a while, they started going to slow pitch, because but you mentioned Fitzy Fitzpatrick. He was one of the best. And last time I seen him, he was in the vending business. He was had little vending machines. He was putting in different places. He just did it as kind of a hobby, get to see people. But he was something else. But we used to go over in right field. You mentioned right field. Your dad left it. Right field had a hill. Yeah. When you hit the ball, it wasn't a real long fence, but you had to go up a hill to get to the fence.
Made it play longer though.
Yeah, but
we lived over in Bowling Addition at Glen Avenue for a while, and sometimes after school I'd go over there and hit golf balls because it was still mowed enough that I could find the balls and pick them up. That's more.
So after you went to Beckley College, you went down to Tech, and then actually Beckley College beat Tech a few times. When did you guys play?
Well, I didn't have the money to stay every semester, and I would commute, and a lot of times instead of going up to Hawks Nest and practicing, I would drive back home, and I'd go to Twin Oaks and practice. And I got to be good friends with David Baker. and Dave was an outstanding golfer. I mean, he'd go out there and shoot 66 like it was par about every time, and we'd play together, some practicing, and we had John Smithson and Mike Kusick, Dan Wilson. They were very good golfers, and they won the conference, and I think they went to national maybe to play. They were an outstanding team, and yeah, so I got to know Dave quite well, and we played a lot of golf together.
Well, Dave played a little pro, didn't he? Or did
he tried some of the mini tours, and I know one time he said when they put up their money, somebody ran off with the money. So,
well, Scotty Cuthbert tells me he had a great round of golf out at Cool Ridge one time. He shooting a 28 or something. He said that was the best golf he ever played. Was that. We had, I ran the Gibo golf tournament, the Greater East Beckley Open, and we started out there, and I ran it for 37 years. We started out there, then they closed down. We went to Black Knight for a little bit, then we went to Woodhaven 1 year, and then we went to the Briar Patch, and then back to Black Knight. And it was actually Larry Buchanan was the one that started the tournament. He got killed in a plane crash, and I took it over for a while. But after 37 years, I decided somebody else needed to run it, and it's still going on. I think next year will be its 48th year of the tournament. But I had a nephew who is a very good golfer, an avid golfer, and he played in the Northern Virginia area. And I kept telling him, come down and play in this tournament, come down and play in this tournament. So, and I mean, he could hit a ball a mile, and we got on number one as he was playing in the tournament. He never had played out at Cool Ridge, and he hits the second shot, and it hits the green and bounces about 10 feet in the air. And he goes, what was that? And I said, the greens are a little hard sometimes, but the first year he had a pretty difficult time. He just couldn't get used to it. But the second year he had mentally figured it out. He won the daggone thing the second year when he came back down. But it was a little different. Not real long, but could be hard. They called it the rock pile.
Right.
Different names.
I broke a lot of wooden heads, drivers, and 3 woods, and you hit down through the ball, and there'd be rock right underneath the top layer, and
trying to get it in the ground sometimes would be very difficult.
Yeah.
But actually, when they decided to close, I actually offered to lease that place for 3 years, and just see if I could make any money at it, and but they wouldn't do it. They had other plans, and then I don't think they ended up doing what they had planned. But I actually thought that I could make a little bit of money at it and kind of upgrade it some, but just one of those things. But it was a lot of. It used to be paid $9 and played all day.
Yeah. Sometimes they say, "Oh, I just go on and play." But in '65, Twin Oaks went to grass greens, so Beckley College played there.
I see.
After I went to Tech, but I'd go back there and play at that course. But we played at Cool Ridge there while I was in Beckley College.
When you graduated from Tech, did you go right into teaching?
Yes, I did. I had to go back. I started before I graduated. I had to go back and get one class for one semester to get my certificate. So I worked for Kroger's for a year, and I got married in 1970, and actually graduated in 71 spring and started teaching right away at Coal City Elementary. And they still had the draft for Vietnam going on at the time, and being in school I was okay, but once I started teaching, they sent for me to report for the draft. Well, I contact his elementary superintendent at the time was Mason Anderson, and he said, well, we'll take care of it. Well, they got it put off till the end of the semester, and they were going to give me the test then. So several of the guys were taking a physical for the, I don't know, the reserves or National Guard at the time, and I said, well, I'll go do that, and that maybe that'll keep me from getting inducted and being sent to Vietnam, because I lost a good friend over there anyway. And I didn't pass the test. Said I had high blood pressure, and they had me come back. I was teaching at Coal City Elementary those first 2 years, and they had me come back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday mornings before I went to school, and the afternoon after I come back home. And they said I still had high blood pressure, so I was able to go on and start teaching. And during that following year, 72, the first year I was teaching, Nixon did away with the draft. So
wow. Yeah, they had the first year they come out with the lottery. I was in college, and some guy came up, and when I was in, he said, "What's your lottery number?" I didn't even know there was a lottery. That's how much I'd paid attention. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, if your number's a 1 to 195 or something, you might be drafted, but since you're in school full time, you get a deferment." Well, then I went straight to the library and looked, and mine was my number actually was kind of borderline, but they didn't quite get there that year, and I was in school anyway, but I'd never even heard of a lottery at that time. Now
I forgot about what the number was. In looking through my desk, I found the paper where I'd cut it out, and it had, I guess it went up for every day of the year, 1 to 365 or something, and I found that paper that I'd cut out, and I was like number 185.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I heard they went to like 190, 189 or something like that, and I can't remember what, I was thinking my number was 197, but for some reason, but it was a big thing back then. People burning their draft cards and those guys.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I still had that paper after all these years, because it was just in the last 5 years or so that I found that paper that I'd cut out.
Now, did you stay at teaching at Coal City?
I was there the first 2 years and taught the 5th grade and coached the 5th and 6th grade basketball team, and wanted to get in secondary because my degree was in secondary. I had to go, while I was teaching elementary, get a couple classes to be eligible to teach secondary the next year.
Yeah.
Couple summer classes, but the position, there was assistant coach, basketball coach, opened up, and I went to apply for it, and John Kersey was the principal, and he hired me, but he said he had already hired Doug Lovell as the assistant basketball coach. Roger Yost was the football and the basketball coach at the time, and so just needed an assistant, but he hired me, and I taught 3 years there down at Lego at Stokoe Junior High. Taught West Virginia history and one class of U.S. history, because I had a minor in history.
Mm-hmm.
My degree was in health and physical education for secondary.
Now you talked about you got married in 1970, and your wife Linda is I think my second cousin. I think we're
right
somewhere along that line.
Right, yeah.
But it's hard for me to keep up because my grandfather had 17 kids on my dad's side, and my mom's side I think there was 10, and so cousins are aplenty,
Yes.
But Linda had she had grown up in Abraham,
Mm-hmm.
and she, the 12th grade, she came to Woodrow for the last year, I think.
Yes.
And that had to have been a culture shock.
I'm sure it was.
And
She was showing me where the old Abraham School was.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned it, maybe talking to Doug.
Yeah, my grandfather built, Grandfather Bennett built the old Abraham School, and built it in 30 days, and it's documented, and they hauled the wood off with the horse and wagon from Meadow Creek, and him and a brother-in-law and a couple kids built it. My dad was the oldest son, and he worked on it. He was in the 3rd grade at
really?
the time. When she came to Woodrow, that's when we had almost 2,000 students, had 612 or something in our graduating class. And I had one class with her, I think it was social studies. I always tried to copy off of her, but she never would let me copy off of her. But I always kind of felt sorry for her because I said, it's got to be. I mean, it was a shock for me because they consolidated Stratton and Beckley, and
Yeah, that was the
it was a tough year for a lot of people too. But actually, I had a good. The sports was it was kind of unique. The athletes got along fine, it seemed like, and some of the great guys got some good athletes from Stratton, but I kind of felt sorry for the seniors too, because here they'd gone to Stratton for 3 years, and now they got to, and they didn't bring anything over from Stratton, no colors, no names, nothing. And I always kind of still sympathize with those people, just, and I don't think they didn't think they got a fair shake, and I kind of didn't think so either. But that's just one of those things. When did you come to Woodrow?
Well, after those 3 years at Stoco Junior High, they consolidated Stoco and Sophia there in '76, and I interviewed with Glenn Daniel. He was the first principal because I wanted to get in secondary and teach physical education and coach basketball, and he interviewed me and hired me to teach gym, and me and Joe Goddard were the physical education teachers, and hired me as assistant basketball coach. He hired Doug Basham as the head coach, so I worked with Doug there those first 2 years of Independence, and he also hired me to start a golf team at Independence, and which I did, was head golf coach, and that lasted for 2 years. And what they had done, they had went by pre-enrollment, thought Independence was going to have 750 students, and actually the most we had was like 580, and so we had too many teachers. And by the way, we played AAA those first 2 years, playing Beckley and Oak Hill and the AAA schools around. So it was pretty difficult competing against those teams. But they transferred, I know, at least 8 teachers out of there, and most of them went to Woodrow. And of course, I got a reduction in force RIF saying I was being transferred or I was losing the job at Independence. And so most of the summer, I really wasn't contacted as to where I was going to be. And Jeff Britton and Fred Smith played golf at Twin Oaks, and they said, "You're going to be at Woodrow." I said, "How you know?" And they said, "Well, they printed up the booklets for the teachers for the coming year, and you're in there." And what it was is Chick Munson had been the gym teacher with Butch Smith and Jackie Joe Robinson. And Chick moved to the office, for the attendance office, and they left the opening there, and I got to take the third gym teacher position for there at Woodrow there in, 78, 79 year. And
I had done left at that time. I had been at Sophia Elementary, and then I went to Woodrow in '73, and taught over there till '77, and coached wrestling, and then I left the school system, went to the Y for 5 years, but I left. It was kind of weird. I've never left a job because I disliked what I was doing. I just thought something was a little bit better or suited me better. Yes. And it actually all worked out for me. I worked at the Y. I loved working there. It opened up a lot of doors for me and stuff. But after 5 years, I really missed the real direct coaching. I missed the classroom. And so I went back. Mark Lilly was the assistant principal at Park. Yeah. And he'd come up to the Y all the time. And he kind of knew I was, it wasn't nothing about I loved Bob Boland and Mel Hancock. Those guys were great to me. And he said, "I got a job for you at Park, man." He said, "You can coach football, wrestling, and track." And I said, "Really?" But it was a behavioral disorder job. I had kids, and that was right when that behavioral disorder classes had just started. and they shipped kids in from Shady and Treville. I had some kids, man. It was something else, but it was a good experience. But I had left there in '77. Now, when did you start coaching basketball at Woodrow?
Well, that first year, Jackie Joe was the head coach, and not sure who the assistant was. Gary Nichols, I believe Gary Nichols was assistant. And so that first year I didn't coach, but the next year Jackie Joe left to take a job and outside of teaching, and so Gary Nichols was hired as the basketball coach, and they needed an assistant. Ron Rose didn't get the head job, so he left, I think, and took another job. And so I applied for the assistant job and worked with Gary there as his assistant.
That's when Chad Bolin and those guys played, didn't they?
Well, it's actually Bobby Bolin was senior, and
Green.
Bo Green.
Yeah, Bo Green, those guys, yeah. And when Dave Barksdale came back to Beckley, he coached girls for a year or two, didn't he? And then
he was coaching at Alderson Broadus. He was there like 7 years, and Gary, I think, had the job for 4 years maybe, and he left and took an outside job, I think it was, and they hired Coach Barksdale. Ross Hutchins hired Coach Barksdale, and he took over right away as the head basketball coach.
Oh, for some reason I thought he coached girls.
He, about the mid-'80s, he took the girls for a couple of years. They had a really good bunch, and they needed
coached
someone.
Girls and boys.
He did it, Of course, it was, I think they were playing in the fall at the time, and I know Kristen Staples, Dee Dee Gwynn, they had some really good players, and he took them to the state tournament those 2 years he coached the girls.
When he took over, were you used to the intensity of the kind of guy he was? I mean, this guy loved Beckley basketball, and he lived it, and I mean, so when he came along, I mean, I've had Bobby on here before, and but you had longer practices, and I mean, it was a job besides a teaching job. I mean, it was. How did you adapt to that?
Well, when he first came, we taught physical education together, so we got to know each other pretty good. That fall, we were talking, and he was talking about playing baseball at Woodrow, and of course, Van Meter and Preach Wiseman had a barrel in the back that had scorebooks from years before, and I remember looking in there, and I found a baseball scorebook, and I opened it up, and it had Coach Barksdale hit a grand slam home run to beat Mullins in a baseball game. And when we started talking baseball in our office there, I said, "Wait a minute, Coach," and I went to the back and got that baseball book and brought it out to him, showed where he had hit a grand slam home run to beat Mullins. And but we took a coaching trip that fall out to Indiana University to watch Bob Knight and practice going on then. And on the way out, I said, "Coach, what do you expect of me? What do you want?" And he said, "I want your loyalty." And I tried to do that the whole time. And we had a great time there watching them. Butch Powell went with us also to that. And then on the way back, after I think it was 3 days out there, a former teammate of Coach Barksdale's was assistant coach at Louisville. So we stopped off at Louisville and went in, and Denny Crum was the coach there, and he was totally opposite of Bob Knight. Bob Knight just looked at us. He had an assistant coach that took care of us, but Denny Crum, they was running practice, and he come over and he'd show us X and O's or whatever he's doing in practice and talk to us real friendly like, and difference in night and day between Coach Knight and Coach Crum. But the assistant there that Coach had played with at Furman was there and talked to us too. So it was quite a trip when we got back. And so I got to know him quite a bit, and was happy to work with him because he took control of that team. The year before that he got there, we had probably the best team in the state, and things didn't work out for Gary Nichols. And we went to a tournament. Wheeling Park had the Rack's roast beef tournament, it was called, and we beat Brook, and then we beat Wheeling Park to win the championship. And we had some very good black players, some very good white players, and Gary didn't handle the situation, and we'd have warm up, and all the blacks would go to one end, and the whites would go to the other end. So when Coach Barksdale came, he saw what was happening, and so he had the number system. Your point guard 1, the wings were 2 and 3, post 4, and big guy 5. And he said all the 4 and 5 down at this end to warm up, and all the 1, 2, and 3s at this end. So it mixed them in, and you got to see there's no favorites. We're going to play the best people, the best ones. You work hard at practice every day. Everyone works hard. You get the opportunity to be ready to play. And Coach was a great teacher, and he worked it out to where we had no problems, and it went on from there.
Now, another thing, I'm sure a lot of younger kids paid attention to the time. I mean, he started a summer league. He had summer camps, and when I was talking to him, for him the summer was as hard as the winter. I mean, because he worked all day at the camps and would leave and sometimes just grab a sandwich and go run the league till 10 o'clock at night, which could be ahead. And a lot of those times he was officiating too, not just running. He was officiating.
Yeah, I helped officiate the games. Of course, I was officiating basketball. Actually, that first year I was at Woodrow, Ross Hutchins got me to become a basketball official, which I enjoyed. I did it for 16 years, till about 95, I think. And so that way I studied the rules and everything, but I helped officiate the summer league. But in games, sometimes the referee might call something, and Coach said, "Is that a rule? Is that right?" And I had to tell him, "Yeah, I'm afraid it was."
Miller Hall coached a little bit with you guys, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
I never associated Miller with basketball, but he played football and wrestled and stuff,
Miller was a competitor, and it showed, when he worked with the kids, he was good for the team.
Now, somewhere along the line, I think it might have been a Bluefield game. Coach Barksdale got thrown out of the game, and I don't guess you expect anything like that when it just falls on you all of a sudden. So you have to finish the game as the head coach, alternate. That puts a lot of pressure on you, doesn't it? I mean, how did you feel about that?
Well, I tell you the truth. We opened up the first year the coach was there with Independence, I think. And then we went into the holiday tournament. And we had an alumni game before that. After Independence, we had an alumni game. And Bob Dyke was the official. And he called 2 technicals on Coach Barksdale in the alumni game. He had to sit out the tournament game of the holiday tournament. So I started out the very first year as taking over the team. And we played Martinsburg, and it was nip and tuck. And one thing we'd worked on is, like, if we had to delay, hold the ball a little bit, we got a good lead right at the last part of the game. And I had them to hold the ball, work our little weave that kept us in possession of the ball to pull out the win of that game. And so over the years, I don't know, I didn't keep count of how many times, but there was a dozen or 15 times that I worked as the head coach because Coach had to sit out.
Of course, another thing too, defense. He emphasized, like a full court defense almost all the time. And I don't know a lot about basketball, but I used to watch all the high school games back during the times when Barksdale was around. I haven't it's been a while since I've been to a basketball game. I watch them on video now, but very seldom did he go to a zone or anything like that. Did that you have to adapt to that too, or?
Well, he taught it well of how to play it, and sometimes you thought we was playing a 2-3 zone, but it was just that we were matched up and moved with the ball. The movement of the ball determined where we were. Your man had the ball, you had pressure on the ball, so making his ball handling and his passing hard. And if you backed off and let the guy pass easy, he got on you. You had to put pressure on the ball, and so it was. We played the man-to-man full court a lot of times, and sometimes we back off and just play the pressure half court.
Yeah.
But the brand of basketball that I really enjoyed because it speeded things up. When we got up and down the floor, we wanted to fast break and get the ball down the floor and get a quick shot. And if we missed it, have a rebounder there to put it back in.
In 1990, I think is when you won your first state championship.
Yes.
With Barksdale back. And then they went on, won 5 during that era, decade, and then 2 runners up, I think, maybe.
3.
3 runners up. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. But that's when everybody was excited about Beckley basketball in Beckley, around Beckley. Now, the people in the other parts of the state, I'd go to a wrestling tournament or something, and man, how do y'all put up with that basketball coach? God, I said, hey, they win. I said they got, but during that particular time, I guess the toughest part was in 1996 or something when you had to coach during the championship game and you guys lost 99-96 in 3 overtimes, and there was actually I was on a committee that passed that rule that if you get, I don't even know what the rule is now. Technical coach gets
It's 3
technicals.
3 technicals had to sit out a game.
Which I thought that was the state rule anyway. But anyway, that Raleigh County was the first or maybe one of the first counties to come up with that. What I can remember is going to the committee meeting. We met 3 times, and there was about 8 people on that committee. Some officials, some principals, Pat Forgill, me, I think Brendan Bostick, maybe Terry Poe, Racine Thompson. I can't remember who all was on that committee now. But I honestly, the name Dave Barksdale never came up during a committee meeting. Never, that I can recall. But when the rule came out, it was called, the newspapers labeled it the Barksdale rule. Like, we're trying to get him, Well, of course, the state tournament, the championship game, and the Barksdale, he can't coach in the championship game because he was tossed in the semis, I guess. And at what time during the semi game was he put out? Do you know?
Well, I don't think he had to leave the game, but because of the
okay.
Because he just got 1 technical in that game, but that was 3 for
it was accumulation. Yeah.
And George Pack called the technical, and thing was, Coach was conversing with Ron Christie, and George was clean across the floor, and George was known for that, come over and called the technical. He called it from across the floor, and he said later, I saw him on the golf course, he said, if I'd known that was going to happen, I would have not called it technical. And they had talked about letting him serve that game the following season. And I think Miller Hall was the principal and was going to enforce it the next season so he would be able to coach the championship game. And several people that you named in the committee there Warren Carter insisted that it be dealt with right then, that he could not coach the championship game. So, in fact, he put me in charge of running the practice before and the shoot around before during that day before the game, and so then I had to coach the game. I mean, the kids just played an outstanding game. It was a shame that anybody had lost it, but the thing was that we were fouled in the last 10 seconds of play because Gene Neighbors went to score and they fouled him and they didn't call it. And the reason was the night before, Fairmont, coached by Babe Stingo, and Wheeling Park, coached by Sam Andy, were playing in the semifinal game. And the last few seconds, the ball came off the rim and the Wheeling Park kid flipped it up in the air underhanded. He just kind of tapped it and it went up and went in, and Ray Vest called it no good. He was very demonstrative there at the front of the scorer's bench. It was no good, and I was watching from up in the stands, and Pat Forgill, I saw him shake his head like it was good. So they had to go to the scorer's table and iron it out. And of course, Pat won the argument that it was good. And so Wheeling, meantime, Babe Stingo run over and shook hands and said, "Let's go team to the dressing room," because he thought he won.
I thought he won. I mean,
and then they declared Wheeling Park the winner. So the next night, I'm sure of the discussion, don't call anything in the last 5 seconds to make you look bad. Pat Forgill used to call it at the officials meeting, Southern Coalfield, said, Mutt and Jeff, don't do a Mutt and Jeff. And that's what.
Now, who was the rules interpreter at that time? State rules interpreter?
Well, he was in charge of our meetings.
Okay.
And of course, Ray was really upset. I think he quit officiating after that.
Yeah, that was. But you know, it's kind of weird. I've heard one local writer, sports writer, had written. They said, you know, some people said, well, if Barksdale would have been coaching, they'd have won state championship or something. You know, then but the sports writer said, no, if Barksdale would have been coaching, they would have never made it to overtime because he would have got technical, and it would have been over at the end of regulation.
Yeah, that missed call at regulation led to the triple overtime.
Wow. You know, I've spoken with Dave a couple of times, and you know, that's basketball. I mean, you know, the man. I mean, I'm sure he'd like to have been right down there on the bench.
Sure.
But I forgot about what the rule was. But it was once they got their third accumulated during the whole season, they had to sit out. Besides, and I don't know whether that rule was still in effect or not. I don't. When the rule came up, the one name that kept coming out there was Don Knuckles. They kept saying, "Well, we don't want no Don Knuckles situation, you know, this, that, you know." But like I said, I don't recall. I don't even know why I was on the committee actually, but I was there. But it was one of those things. So after that era, then Dave decided to go to quit and go to South Carolina. Now he had actually said, you know, if you wanted the job, he thought you should have it. You know, you would be his first choice. But you quit too, didn't you?
Yes, I gave it up after that 2000 season.
Okay. And you had been teaching 20-some years. You were still teaching, but you didn't coach.
I was right at 30, 28, 30 years.
Yeah. But you still taught.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I taught till 2003 was my last year teaching. I decided to take early retirement.
Yeah. Now you, which gave you more time for golf, and I mean you've became become official in the West Virginia Golf Association, and what does that do? What does the Golf Association actually do? I mean, what are you?
Well, when I first went on, it was in '92, and we had a volunteer executive director at the time, Dr. Scott Moore from Huntington, and his wife Pat run the Golf Association tournaments that they had at the time, which was only about 6 tournaments, I think. The West Virginia Amateur, they held at the Greenbrier, the West Virginia Open, which included pros and went to different courses around the state. But there in 93, we decided Dr. Moore wanted to retire, and he was a dentist, and he was going to move to Greenville, South Carolina. And so we wanted to hire a executive director. And we met up to Pete Dye Club, which is only 9 holes at the time, and we interviewed by phone at least 3 people. Joe Fagans was one, and Bill Dickens from Michigan was one. And we ended up hiring Bill Dickens as the first paid executive director. And he came to West Virginia, and he was with us about at least 3 years, I think it was, as the executive director. And then he got a job back with Michigan State Golf Association. And we hired Danny Fisher, and he lasted 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure how many it was now. And after that, we hired Ken Tackett, who, Danny had hired Ken. Ken was in Las Vegas. He was a drummer for a band out there in Vegas, and he wanted to come back. He'd attended Capitol High School, and he wanted to come back to raise his kids here in West Virginia. And he'd played in the house band that had been in the movie Bagger Vance.
Oh, really?
And in Ocean's 11 as a house band in Vegas. And so he came back, and once he took over for Danny, once Danny let go, he did an outstanding job. He was great. Of course, now Slugger got him to move over to the PGA Tour.
Now, is the Golf Association tied in with PGA or the national organization?
No, it's we just run the tournaments in the state.
Where do you get your source of income?
We've got up, I'm not sure how many tournaments now. We run 24 senior series one-day events. Same with Callaway Golf for the juniors. We have various tournaments around the state, and it's a big deal now. It's quite a. We had the award for the best small state association a couple of times. We've had that.
Is that your source of income? Is it entry fees or you have sponsors?
Well, both
Both
entry
of
fees
them?
and sponsors. But I was on the association from 1992 to 2012, and the last 4 years, 2009 to 12, I served as the president, and then I stepped down, and Steve Fox became the next president.
Now you've played in a lot of tournaments. You've placed, you've been in the first flight. You've been in championship. You've won some tournaments over the years. Of course, it's good now that they have age group tournaments. That helps the older guys a little bit. But how many holes in one have you hit in your life?
I've had 5, and the last one was in 2000, so it's been 25 years since I had one. But my first, every one of them was an excellent shot. I say I wasn't lucky with any of them, but the first one was I think 79 at Twin Oaks, and I had one in 1986 in a sports festival at White Oak. I flew it in the cup, tore the edge of the cup out, and the Fat Tribune was there and had someone take a picture. A friend of mine, Chuck Blake, was on the 18th tee, and he come over and shook my hand because the green was right there beside the tee, and they took a picture of that. But my last one was at, in fact, all 5, I think, 5 different courses.
Wow.
The last one was at the Cobb course on number 7, and I made one at Beaver Creek on the 2nd hole.
I remember that one too. Now, you, in the old days, you played with some of them guys around, but did you ever play with Ian Payne? I know he used to win the Black Knight a lot, or Ned Payne.
Ned was a heck of a golfer. When I was 14, 15, go to Black Knight and caddy because I was that interested in golf, and I'd watch Ned hit balls, and I'd never seen anybody hit balls that take off kind of low and then just climb up and then kind of drop softly. When the iron shots, he was outstanding. But I think I did get to play with him one time, and I can't remember where it was.
they used to let the caddies play on Monday at Black Knight. My brother caddied out there for years, and they would they closed on Mondays, and they would let caddies play if they had clubs. And most of the time, a lot of the members would loan the caddies or clubs and stuff so they could. That's how my brother got interested in the golf, that because he didn't have no way to go anywhere else. But now some of the local guys, I mean, over the years, Will Thomas, Ira Lee. I mean, those are some. Ira Lee played forever, didn't he? And Spot Leach. You played with Spot Leach a lot, didn't you?
A lot, yes, quite a bit. When I first played at Twin Oaks, I played with Lloyd Parker and Cotton White, Slugger's dad. We played a lot over there and just had a lot of good people we enjoyed playing. And once I got to Grandview, I really moved to Grandview because a friend of mine, Andy Holland, we taught at Stokoe Junior High together, and we'd go out and play golf together. And he left Twin Oaks and went to Grandview earlier, and I stayed there another year or two, and I decided to go out in I don't know, 83, 84, something like that, to Grandview and join out there and play. And then Spot, in later years, we traveled and played senior series together, and he started mowing the greens out there, and not till 2012. At Twin Oaks, I'd mowed fairways for at least 3 summers, and in 2012 I started mowing fairways at Grandview to help Joel Shoemate. Joel mowed the back nine, I mowed the front nine. But we traveled a lot, and I had a course rating team. We used the USGA booklet to rate golf courses. Every so many years, the course had to have an update or reading to get their stroke course rating average. And so if they belonged to the West Virginia Golf Association as a member, they got a course rating every so many years. And Spot was on my course rating team with several other guys, and we'd travel around the state when they needed a course rating. And it was a course rating team out of Charleston and somewhere else. Mason. Gary Rouse had a course rating team out of Mason.
Yeah.
So one or sometimes a couple of teams would show up and do course ratings at certain courses that needed it.
I used to go out to Shady and get a haircut at Darryl Matherly's, and Darryl played in the Gibo golf tournament several years until, and Spot would come in, and the first time he came in, Darryl said, "That's the only guy that comes in my door that can still shoot his age," you know, and then he could.
Yes, he could.
He was something else. But who's probably the best golfer you ever played with?
Well, I got to play with Bill Campbell. Of course, he was older then at Edgewood. One year we had an association get together at Edgewood, and I got to play with him, which was quite an experience because he was like 15-time state amateur champion. And we talked about Gary Rouse played too, and he talked to Mr. Campbell about playing in the Rubber City Open up in Akron back in the 50s, I guess it was. And Mr. Campbell's talked to him, he said, "Yeah, I remember that hole. I had a bad shot and had to go over there and recover." And Gary was telling him he remembered that hole, and he said, "Yeah, I recovered and made the par." After hitting a bad shot, he knew exactly what it was. And it was, like I say, he was probably 80 years old at the time, or close to it.
He was, I seen his name in the paper a whole lot. But that's one of the things we always liked when the Greenbrier started their tournament. You get to see some of these guys, like Tiger Woods and some of those guys, man, play. I mean, it's just remarkable what they can do. And the first year or so, they eat that Greenbrier course up, man. I mean, it was like, I can't even imagine a guy shooting like a 59 or something on that thing, but they had to make that thing tougher for those guys.
We had the Golf Association helped work the tournament, and I was in charge of the marshals from holes 13 through 19. So I was staying busy back and forth. I didn't get to watch a whole lot of the tournament, but that was quite an experience working the tournament and seeing. I remember we had a rain delay one day and a storm delay, and they called the players back in and took the golf cart to shuttle a player back in, and one player turned me down, and I went up, ended up picking up Davis Love and his caddy and taking them back out to hole 12, whatever hole they were on, to resume play. And so there was a lot of really good golfers there, but I know I heard that Slugger was there, and I drove my cart, and I found out he was over to the right of number 1 fairway. So I drove on over there to see him, and he was there talking to Arnold Palmer, and so I got to shake their hand and talk to him a little bit and hustle back out to my duty.
What do you think about this new association, the LVD or whatever it is?
It's been controversial. A lot of people don't care for it at all because it's different. They play music out on the course and have it like a party, and they only play 54 holes, and that's Roy McIlroy just spoke on them making a change to 72 holes they're talking about for this coming year, so hoping that maybe that'll give them a little more where they can get more recognition for Player of the Year points and get some of those players maybe in some of the bigger tournaments.
I know I've watched some of them on TV, and my son went to one of the tournaments up around Manassas, Virginia, and he said, you wouldn't believe this, Dad. He said, man, they eat the holes, they party. He said, it's like you can make all the noise you want. And he said, it's not like a regular golf tournament,
No, it's totally different.
But now that, I guess that does appeal to some fans, and I mean, that's, even though golf is probably one of the most traditional sports out there, you still got to have fans. And if you look at all the major sports, most of the rules that have been made or changed in the last 50 or ever have been made for the fans, not necessarily for the game itself. But what do you, in the summer and spring and fall, you play golf 2 or 3 times a week, I guess, and then you mow the fairways. What do you do in the wintertime and the days you can't get out?
We check the weather in like Mount Airy and different places where we could travel to. If they have some warmer days, we travel down, and we went down to Statesville and down close to Winston-Salem and travel just a couple 2-3 hours away and play and come back. But a lot of times the weather's not that good, so spend a lot of time reading. My wife loves to read. Linda can read circles around me. She can sit and read a book in a day, and she's read over 300 books in a year. And so I write. We keep a journal, the books we read and the authors, and I've averaged around 30 to 33 books in a year, which shows you how slow I read. But already this year I've got 40 books read because I found an author I really enjoy, and been going to Shady Library and checking out the books. I'm down to about his last book has been published, I think, William Kent Kruger, and he writes about up around the northern part of Minnesota and the Ojibwe Anishinaabe Indians and the boundary waters and the islands up there. It's really interesting, really enjoy his book. He was a local sheriff up there at times, but he still would investigate murders or things, and really have enjoyed his books.
Well, I've read a lot too. I'm a voracious. I'll read 1 to 2 novels a week usually, and it just kind of depends on what kind of mood I'm in. I'm sometimes I'll take an author and I'll read, if especially series. If they have a book series, I'll read every one of them. And the bad part about I haven't documented any, and sometimes I've checked out a book like 5 years later. I said, I think I've read this book.
I've reread several too.
But I love and I didn't think I'd ever. I like to hold a book in my hand, but I have here lately been reading more on the Kindle on the computer, and sometimes it'll save you a trip if it's free or whatever. But there's so many books out there. Now I know your wife, she was involved in newspaper book sales for a while. I've seen her 2 or 3 times at the Armory and stuff when they don't have them anymore. The library still does, I guess. I don't know whether she's still involved.
Well, our niece worked at the library, at the newspaper, and so we would help get books for her to get to the newspaper, and she would run like a fundraiser to get newspapers and education, and get the papers to the schools, and so we helped her out, and because we read a lot and we'd donate books, and we'd go to some of these book sales and pick up a lot of books that interested us and read them and then donate them back for that purpose. And
you ever been to the West Virginia Book Festival in Charleston?
No, I haven't. No. We talked to someone that enjoyed going and talking about Lee Child was there one time and really enjoyed his Jack Reacher books and read all of them and owned all of them.
Well, you can. Of course, they just had one 2 weeks ago, but I've been several times, and you got the authors of books and writers and stuff on one side. Of course, they're trying to sell their books and whatever. And then the other side, you've got the used book sale, and it's an enormous. And there's literally thousands of people come in there, but they got all kinds of books. And then they have, in some of the other rooms and stuff, they have authors doing 30-minute question answering or explaining their books. It's really, really kind of, it's worth at least one trip down there if you ever get it. And it's usually the last Saturday in October. And we always go, but we had a dinner on Sunday, and I couldn't go out of town 2 days in a row. It's hard on me, So I just one day is all I could do. But now what's on your bucket list? What's something that you would like to do that you haven't done?
Well, I was on the USGA Junior Championship Committee for 25 years, and I would run the state junior qualifier, and then I'd go to the national tournament each year to work as rules official, and Linda would go with me, and we went to places like San Francisco for the Olympic Club, the juniors play there, and San Antonio, Atlanta Athletic Club, Long Meadow in Massachusetts, the Bedminster course in New Jersey, Donald Trump owned, Pumpkin Ridge in Oregon. We've been all over the country, but really loved the traveling. I'd like to get back to more traveling. When I taught West Virginia history, Linda and I traveled to a lot of the state parks in West Virginia, take a long weekend and go a lot of the different ones and visit. Really enjoyed that. Of course, I always wanted to go to Ireland and Scotland, but never made the
Most
trip.
Most golfers always think that.
Yeah, golfers always want to go like that. So, I'd like to went over and played some of the British Open courses, but never did. And
what is it about when they brought the European team over this year and they defeated the U.S. team, which is very rare on the other person's home course, but it just seems like, guys that I've never even heard of, from Europe, and they come over here and man, they play in those that Ryder Cup and those kind of. and those guys can play. And some of those courses don't have any trees or anything, but they got, I mean, the bunkers are unbelievable. I mean, it's just a whole different
matter of staying out of. They play a different. Well, they play a lot of, I guess, growing up or in social golf or whatever, and learning to play golf. They play a lot of 4-ball. They call it. They play where they play 1 ball and they alternate shots. They play a lot of that over there so they can play faster. And we don't play that in America, except seem like in the Ryder Cup or in some club memberships, club member guests, where you may hit the tee shot and I'm your partner. I've got to hit the second shot and then you got to hit the next shot. And seem like the British really do well in that, or the Europeans. And Americans, we always seem to fall behind in that part.
Yeah.
And they have that both morning sessions usually. The best ball is where we play our own ball and play it into the hole. We count the best score out of the partners, and we do pretty good in that. And singles as well. But this year the Europeans just beat us. They played great golf, and in the singles we made a great comeback, but we still lost. But
well, one of
the
golfers just didn't have the weekend either. I guess sometimes it just happens. But now you, I wouldn't expect you to be like a Slugger White, but you think you're pretty up on the rules of golf?
Well, I was, because while I was on the U.S. Junior Committee, I attended PGA, USGA workshop. They run them together and travel to Columbus or Pittsburgh or different places wherever they held, because they rotated around. They have different sessions during different years, seminars, and so I stayed up on it then. Once I finished my 25 years and I didn't have to go to these events to rules, then I quit studying it like I had. And then 2019, they made some major rule changes where you can putt with a flag stick in, you can tap down in impressions or whatever in the greens, spike marks. Of course, they don't have spikes anymore, but any places you can tap them down. Rules like that to make it a little more golfer friendly for everyone involved playing. And so I haven't really studied the rules or kept up with them like I did back then, but
now you coached at Woodrow, did you?
I went back in 2016 and needed a golf coach, and I went back and coached it for 6 years, and I had several outstanding golfers. Jackson Hill, Zan Hill, his brother, ended up the last year I coached. Zan won the AAA state championship, beating a guy from Cabell Midland by 1 stroke, and I had one of the best female golfers, Mary Denny, during that time as well, and just a lot of good kids. I really enjoyed those 6 years of coaching. We won the region there 1 year on George Washington's home course there, Berry Hills, and which was quite an accomplishment, because they're one of the all of their teammates seem to have a job there at Berry Hills, so they get to play there a lot, and they always had a good team. They always had Barry Evans, who's the pro at Berry Hills, work with them. And so it was an accomplishment. And we ended up finishing 3rd out of 8 teams. And another year we finished 4th. So we had some success that the Woodrow golf team hadn't had for a while. Well, in fact, Woodrow golf team had only won the state championship one time, and that was '95. Coach Barksdale's son Ty shot the best round to win the region to get them to the state tournament, and they ended up winning the state tournament.
But it seems like Southern West Virginia with Shady Spring, they've won 2 in a row now, and they've always had some really good teams the last several years. Midland Trail won the AA, I guess, class this year, it seems like that southern part of the state kind of holds up. Now, do most of those players at Shady Spring High School, do they live at Glade, or?
Some of them live at Glade. Others work there, some during the summer and other parts of the year. I know like Cooper Ward, who's a member at Grandview, and but he plays a lot at Glade, and they recognize that they got some good young players out there, and they let them work there or play there quite a bit.
Well, that's what you got to do. But well, listen, Butch, I appreciate you coming by and talking to me, and we could like to get you back sometime, and we could share some more stories if you're willing to come back.
At East Beckley, I got stories about that. I played on the first team when they started the midget football league. Played for East Beckley.
Really? What? Okay. Was Frank Rodriguez your coach?
Frank Rodriguez is the coach.
I didn't know that.
And
you guys never lost.
We went undefeated every year. He did schedule us a game with the Bluefield team, and of course we wouldn't wear spikes or whatever. They wore boots and football shoes. They did beat us, which wasn't in the midget league, but that was just the outside game that he scheduled for us.
Well, Freddie Lewis and a bunch of those guys played for Bowling Edition, I think, around that time. But yeah, that's how I got to know most of the Shady Spring boys. They didn't have a team, and I mean that was almost as many Shady boys as there were East Beckley boys.
Most of us there the first couple of years was from Shady.
Yeah, but what I'd mentioned with. Before with some of the guys I played with, they didn't allow blacks to play until I was my last year. I think I was 12, 13 years old, and they let blacks play the first year. And Chubby Hughes and those guys came and played, and it was. Frank Rodriguez was my first coach, and then Frank quit or got transferred, and then Bill Scruggs. But James Robinson and Rumberg and Jack Richmond, all those guys were assistant coaches.
Yeah, they always came around and helped out.
And,
Bill Scruggs, I think, was their assistant probably.
Yeah,
but
that was a good bunch. Good memories. Well, listen, I appreciate it, and like I said, anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome.
I really appreciate it,
and I thank you very much. Anybody else out there would like to be on our program, you can contact me at awbennett50@gmail.com, and we'll get you on there. And remember, until next time, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. And this is Wayne Bennett, and God bless you.